The epilogue of the Jujutsu Kaisen manga has just released, and this 16-page epilogue chapter was released alongside volumes 29 and 30. So within these volumes, we have promised that there are going to be a lot more illustrations drawn by Gege, as well as many more sketches and tons of information. This is a bit of a final treat for Jujutsu Kaisen fans that Gege has prepared. You definitely want to watch all of this video because the official English version of this epilogue is probably not going to be published until 2026. Again, I do want to preface that these are all spoilers and leaks, and even the official version of volumes 29 and 30 are not going to be released until 2 days time. So I won't be able to show any pictures here just to respect the official publication, but I'll go over all of the text leaks for the epilogue chapter. And be sure to stick around to the very end of the video as we have quite a lengthy comment from Gege Akutami about the ending of the Jujutsu Kaisen manga. We got really tired of the same old boring anime shirts, so we decided to launch Getsuga.com with the aim of creating designs inspired by our favorite anime and manga. We came up with designs that look cool and represent all of our favorite stories. Check out the latest Instinct collection, which features some amazing designs like this Frosted Heavens design inspired by Toshiro Hitsugaya, or this Instinct design inspired by Hollow Ichigo, and my personal favorite, which is the Heart design, which was inspired by Ukiura Shifa. Do not miss out, go to Getsuga.com and wear your favorite stories. So Gege had drawn 2 new pieces of art. The first was of Uraume for volume 29, and the second was this artwork of Gojo for volume 30. The cover of volume 29 features Sukuna, while the cover of volume 30 features Yuji. This 16-page epilogue is actually broken up into 4 parts. So we have an epilogue for Yuji, we have an epilogue Panda, and then one for Nobara, and lastly the final section of the epilogue chapter focuses on Uraume and Sukuna. So the first part of the epilogue is titled Yuko Ozawa. If you remember, Yuko was a small character who was a classmate of Yuji back when he was at junior high school. She pretty much appeared towards the end of the death painting arc, and we haven't seen her since. So this was way back in chapter 64 of the manga. So the setting is on a snowy day with Yuta standing with Yuko, and this seems to be a moment that had occurred in the past when they were in junior high, as Yuji says that he likes the snow, and compared to when they were young, fireworks and the sea become less and less special, but snow still retains that special feeling. Yuko agrees with him by saying that she feels the same way. So then it seems like we cut to the present day and we see Yuko as she thinks to herself that even though she's come back home, she surprisingly hasn't met up with anyone that she knows from school. Yuko, while she's thinking about Yuji, says to herself that even if they were to meet, Yuji may not even know that it's her. She says that through both elementary school and middle school, there are probably about 200 people's faces that she can recognize. As she says that even so, everyone that she passes by here are people that she doesn't know. As she thinks about how futile it is to bump unexpectedly into the one person that she wants to. But then Yuji appears as he calls out to her, saying, "Oh, it's Ozawa." Yuko is surprised to meet Yuji as she asks, "Oh, he's come home." Yuji states that when he left for Tokyo, his grandfather's home was just left as is, so along with some other stuff, he had taken care of it. Yuko says that it's quite a coincidence that they have met. Yuko tells Yuji that her grandfather is going to be moving into an old people's home, so she's going to have to come back to help clean up the house. Yuji tells her that they have quite a lot to worry about despite them being young. Yuko then asks whether if Yuji was alright being in Tokyo. Yuko thinks to herself that she already had known that Yuji was fine because she had heard from Nobara. Yuji explains that he was in Shibuya but he came out fine at the end. Since the Shibuya incident arc was known to everybody, it was quite a national incident. Yuko thinks to herself that this is not what she was asking. She also thinks to herself that he was smack in the middle of an explosion. Yuji then asks us about how she's been doing, as she explains that she was over in Michida, as Yuji states that Michida is the city of mystery. So it seems like Yuji was keeping tabs on Yuko from Nobara, as he reveals that he already knew that she was in Machida, so he knew that she was okay. Yuko thinks to herself that she needs to calm down, as she's starting to think that Yuji may have been asking about her, but then she says that it may have just been Nobara telling Yuji about her. We then cut to the next page, and it's very similar to the first page of that epilogue, as Yuko wonders whether if he still likes the snow. Yuji states that he does, and mysteriously it is still special. As Yuko states that she still likes the snow too, thinking to herself how bright it is, she tells Yuji that she loves when the snow piles up, to which Yuji agrees, as he says to her that it makes you want to make a snowman. Yuko states that she likes the snow because it is similar to the person that she likes so much. So then they are interrupted by Nobara, who states that he is right now on the precipice of becoming an adult, kind of hinting at the fact that Yuji and Yuko ended up together at the end. So Panda's epilogue is actually about Yuta's grandkids coming across Panda, who is a doll within Gojo clan's storage room. From these 2 pages of Panda's epilogue, we learn that Yuta has ended up becoming the Gojo clan head representative. So the granddaughter says that, oh, it's a panda and it's so cute, as the grandson states that you can't touch it as it's from grandpa's treasures. The granddaughter states that it's pretty cute for a treasure, with the boy stating that it's supposed to be a special cursed corpse. The girl is surprised to learn that it's a cursed corpse and she doesn't want it after all, stating that it's dirty, as the boy calls her an idiot. But then suddenly Panda appears to have awoken, stating that this kid has a bad personality. Are you really sure that it's Yuta's grandchild? Then the narrator cuts in stating abrupt mutation cursed corpse Panda. So after the Jujutsu terrorism which had occurred in 2018 of November, this of course was the Culling Games, Panda's mutual observation type independent control had lost function. The grandkids are both shocked to see Panda moving and speaking, and Panda apparently stopped functioning totally in October of 2035 after being registered into the Gojo family storage. Its ownership was then passed to Yuta Okotsu, the current clan head representative. Panda states that the kids are so loud, as the narrator says that even now in the year of 2080, Panda still moves sometimes, as Panda tells the 2 grandkids to stop shouting in his ear. The next part of the epilogue chapter focuses on Nobara Kugisaki, and this is about her meeting her family in order to honor the final wish of Gojo. So it focuses on Nobara meeting her mother, as she calls out to her by saying yo, as Nobara's mom is surprised to see her, asking what is it, as she comments on how Nobara has finally come to see her. But Nobara dismisses this, stating that she hasn't come for her, just that it's bad luck that she doesn't want to ignore the final wishes of that one person. Nobara's mom says that it seems like she's been having fun, as Nobara thinks to herself that this is really annoying her, as she states that she has no interest in not knowing how to do something she doesn't know. Her mom comments on how Nobara had gone and become a sorcerer, as Nobara's mom states that she had no talent for it, as she comments on how Nobara's grandmother had always played around with just Nobara because she seemed to have talent to become a sorcerer. Nobara says that she needs to stop talking like that, as it seems like Nobara's mother is acting like she is her older sister instead of her mother, as she asks how old do you think that both of us are. Nobara says that what she lacked was not the talent of a sorcerer but a talent of a parent, as she says that whether she was there or not, she would have become a sorcerer either way. And she says that even if Nobara's mother didn't have her, she wouldn't have been able to quit being a sorcerer. This is kind of commenting on how Nobara's mother has very little control over her own life, as it was dictated to her by her grandmother, as she questions whether if her mother is that scared of that old hack. Nobara's mum then questions whether if this is all that she has to say, as she asks her whether if she had wanted her to acknowledge her. She apologizes, saying that I know you want me to say I'm sorry for back then, and that how she's grown up so well and how she's so amazing. And this is probably as an attempt to better the memories of her terrible mother even just slightly, but Nobara's mum states that it's too bad because she hasn't changed one bit. She still has that habit of seducing the rich, getting drunk and running through young men. She says that she is having so much fun and she feels like her life is the absolute best, as she tells Nobara that having your parents live at the core of your identity is pretty pitiful. Even I'm like gobsmacked at like what she's saying here, but Nobara says that this is amazing. She says that that was such a light lecture, it has to have come from a planet with different gravity. Nobara states that from the bottom of my heart I really do care about you. She states that she is just respecting the wishes of the dead by visiting her, and she thought that she would drop by as she may see something really funny. Nobara's mum questions what is she saying, as Nobara then calls out to her grandma, much to the surprise of her mother. We then have this really funny panel of Nobara's grandma staring down at her mum, as her mum can barely mutter out the words mother as Nobara tells her to take her time. We now cut to the epilogue of Uraume and Sukuna, and this is about how Uraume had ended up with Sukuna. So Sukuna asks this is, as Uraume states that she doesn't know, as it's always been like this. When she wakes up, everyone around her is cold. Father and mother both died like this because of her. As Sukuna tells Uraume to come with him, stating that yesterday he had accidentally crushed his refrigerator. So it seems like he's replacing his refrigerator with a refrigerator in human form, which is Uraume. as Sukuna tells her to watch over this corpse of a dead animal, stating that it's meat and he doesn't want it to rot. Uraume is surprised as Sukuna states that she is able to make everything cold, right, as he tells her to do it. But Uraume is surprised, stating that it's not like this or it's not like that, as Sukuna questions whether she is an idiot and if she is hungry, as she has meat in front of her so she should just eat it as she pleases. Then we see them in front of a campfire as they're eating the cooked meat. Uraume explains that she cooled the red meat at a low temperature and dried it out by blowing wind at it. Sukuna wonders who had taught her this, as Uraume explains that she was just bored and she figured it out. Sukuna asks whether if Uraume can butcher humans, as Uraume waits to hear more from Sukuna, as he explains that it depends on the person, but apparently eating humans is a bit of a delicacy. Uraume questions how is it though, despite Sukuna being so close to her, why isn't he getting cold and freezing? Sukuna throws it back at Uraume and states that this goes for her as well. Why is it that she does not get cold by being by his side? And this pretty much ends the 16-page epilogue chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, which was included at the end of volume 30 of the manga. Now, from the final volume of Jujutsu Kaisen, we had these two last pages, which serve as afterward comments made by Gege Akutami on the ending of his series. A lot of people have been saying that this is really self-depreciating, and it is pretty crazy some of the language that he uses here. So Gege states that the product Jujutsu Kaisen was pissed out for 6.5 years, nearly 7 years if you include the serialization of these special issues, and what he had learned that he was really an idiot. So yeah, even the translation notes do say that he actually said pissed out, as the Japanese words that he had used is literally what you say for taking a piss wherever you want, or for dirty water to leak out or something wrong, dirty, bad to be released. Gege comments that he was of course pushing himself to the limits to pull out everything that he could for his creations, and after about 3 years of serialization, his already rough personality began to become absent-minded. Even though he was complaining that he is fed up with having things pointed out to him that could be figured out by looking it up on the internet, he had still made the mistake on volume 18 with the sandpin and ended up thinking, like Gecko Moria, that well, if something happens, the people around him will figure it out. What's interesting is that volume 18 covers chapters 153 to 161. So this is content from the perfect preparation arc leading up to the beginning of the Culling Game arc, as Gege states that he has already been writing these chapters for 6.5 to 7 years through instinct alone. Now Gege states that because Jujutsu Kaisen had turned out so well, it's truly based around the adults that were around him who were more reliable than he was. He then begins to thank all of the people that he has troubled, as he states that he greatly troubled all of his editors, including Katayama-san, Ikeda-san, and Fukuda-san, the volume manager called Yanagida-san, and the designer Ishino-san and his assistants. He then states that speaking of being a trouble, he believes that he put quite a bit of stress every week on the editorial department of Jump and everyone at the printers, and he really apologizes greatly for that. Jujutsu Kaisen began running with his first editor Yamanaka-san, as he then states that the two of them had then entered an underground forced labor arc, as this is what he refers to creating Jujutsu Kaisen as being like, as he says that his editor had periodically communicated with him, as he then expresses thanks to his editor, stating that he is grateful for having met him. Akutami states that the reason that he didn't talk much in between the volumes was because he had become absent-minded. When first becoming serialized, he had took into consideration that Jujutsu Kaisen was being serialized in a major magazine, and he had this feeling of trying to do his best to alleviate the concerns of those who would read Jujutsu Kaisen and feel hurt, and those who would be hurt by people who have read Jujutsu Kaisen. And the result of this was just him telling himself to shut up, and he gets how he himself feels, as he knew that he had wanted to be seen as a good person. This ended up hurting himself, so he had stopped trying to do that, as he comments on how the very idea of trying to be seen as a good person was prideful, and he understands now that it was due to him lacking the conviction to put his creative work out there into the world, as he states that it is embarrassing because even now he does not fully have that conviction when considering evil intent that doesn't exist, as he still wants to shout out loudly, but the root cause of it is his immaturity as a mangaka, so he decides to hold it in, or rather he continues on in a condition where all he can do is swallow it down. Akutami states that the good thing about Shonen Jump is that the brand image is built around not the creator but the created work. And so by trusting himself to make it so that the readers can read his manga without worry, he will take lessons of these last 7 years to heart, and he wants to overcome his problems after this. He states that he has books packed that he had bought during serialization, some were for study and some were just to have around him because they make him feel a bit smarter. He says that in truth he does feel that they made him smarter just by having them around, even if he didn't end up reading them. Akutami states that this is the end of Jujutsu Kaisen that he has drawn, so to everyone who has supported him, to the people who have read it all at once it had become topical, to those who had read it wanting to see what had come after the anime, to the people who just happened to read this final volume, any reason why they have read Jujutsu Kaisen, he truly wants to thank everybody, and he states until we meet again. So some people have commented on this final afterword written by Akutami, stating that these words do give some peace and understanding about what was going through his head when he had wrote this. Despite everything that's happened over the course of the last 3 years of him serializing JJK, especially with his health, he really did try his best and he seems to have had good people around him. But it's no doubt for him to have created the manga Jujutsu Kaisen, it had caused him quite a lot of pain. And yeah, as this person comments that it's hard to hear this from one of the best of our generation who had written shonen manga, stating that he still wants to grow up and try his best to alleviate some of the immaturity that he had shown over the last 7 years. It is definitely going to be interesting to see what JJK comes up with next, but I'm sure that it's going to be after a long break. Again, it's really crazy that he used the term pissed out, which makes it seem like he was just releasing these chapters of JJK without a care in the world. This is probably why people think that the story of Jujutsu Kaisen had gotten worse over time. So the leakers have said that there is more information and sketches from the final volume, but their priority was mainly the epilogue and these comments made by Akutami, and they'll probably post some more leaks later in the day or tomorrow. Well, there you have it. That was Jujutsu Kaisen chapter 271.5. That was the epilogue of the manga and the very end of the series. It was great having these 16 pages which wrapped up the story of Yuji, Panda, Nobara, and Uraume. Let me know what all of you guys think about the ending of Jujutsu Kaisen. What do you guys think about Akutami's depreciating last words? Pretty crazy to be a Jujutsu Kaisen fan. I mean, we all follow the series with a lot of high hopes that this was going to be the next generation's big shonen, but it did have somewhat of a anticlimactic end and a bit of a disappointing run following the Shibuya incident arc. And this seems to be backed up by Akutami even admitting that he had carelessly been releasing the work at some point as he had become absent-minded. Let me know all of your thoughts about this epilogue chapter. Do continue the discussion in the comments. Thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I cannot wait to see you in my next Jujutsu Kaisen video. A massive thank you goes out to all of my amazing Patreon supporters for helping to make this video possible. If you also want to support the channel and see your name in the end of my videos, then check out my Patreon, which has loads of perks like early video access and so much more. Thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.